With Canto 10 on the horizon, I wanted to make another video about Limbus' story, but there wasn't really anything that came to mind to cover. I mean, I've talked about its characters, writing, all the cantos bar the first 2.5, but then I realized something. I've never talked about the Intervallos. I mean, bar my streams of them where I'd give a short list of thoughts at the end, I just never really gave them the spotlight in a video. So I decided that, in preparation for Canto 10, I will play through all the Intervallos again and give my thoughts about them, what makes them work, how good the story is in them, how much they foreshadowed the plot to the game, and I would rate them in a tier list as just sitting here and going like, Limbus writing good, with all the comments going, yes, it good, is incredibly boring. So instead, I decided that we will get objective. We will argue which Intervallos are the best, and someone will take an out of context screenshot at the end of this video of the tier list to then go off and say my opinions are terrible because I didn't remember how Crayon is actually the GOAT that makes Miracle in District 20 somewhat acceptable to have human beings read it. Now for the tiers, I was thinking of doing a standard tier list, but I found that since Limbus' writing is on average really good, the tier list would result in most of them being A or higher when I view the events through the lens of regular gacha game writing. So instead, I will be comparing the Intervallos to each other. How does their writing stack up compared to what Limbus has to offer? Because of that, the tiers are as follows. Canto level for when, well, I think it's self-explanatory, but I don't mean in the sense of it rivaling a canto which has any number above 2, more so that if it were a chapter in a canto, it'd feel right at home, as the workout differences would make it hard for anything, regardless of how it's written, to actually reach the quality of a full canto. Almost canto level. Basically, they're close to the tier above, but a thing or two is missing for them to get there. Top tier, not the absolute best there is to offer, but you won't be forgetting it anytime soon. Good, but can use improvement. Hard to call any of these bad, but they definitely didn't stick out compared to other stories in the game. And please delete yourself from the game. This one is self-explanatory. It's the bottom of the barrel. Shouldn't actually be deleted from the game, but you wouldn't shed a tear if it was. Now, let's get into my subjective tier list of all the Intervallos in Limbus Company, starting with Hell's Chicken. All in all, this one's a little weird to rank, as if it came out as an Intervallo today, it'd easily be one of the worst Intervallos in the game, but I think it's worthwhile to examine it in the context of it being the first Intervallo to release. With that being the case, of course it wouldn't have ego popping up everywhere, secrets of wings being exposed, or Karma trying her best to rage bait everyone that expresses a modicum of self-doubt. But instead what it did was introduce the concepts of distortions in Limbus Company cleanly, show the cast actually bonding together and growing into the family they are now, and gave us Mercel Rap God. Now, the story of Papa Bongi exists pretty much as a gag, and that's it, so it's not like the premise of the Intervallo was anything other than a shitpost, but I appreciate it for that, as I believe for a story to really hit you with big character moments, you need to have times where you're just chilling with the cast so you can grow to like them. That's what Hell's Chicken is for me. So I'll put it in good, but can use improvement. In the context of it being the first event, it earns that spot, but I really struggle to put it in anything above that. Next up is a sea event. Not Southeast Asia, just the actual sea. This one I'm going to be a little harsher on, as it is a second event. At this point, we've already seen the group grow closer together through the main story, mostly when they had to act like members in the League of Nine. So goofing off bonding moments don't feel as special as they did in Hell's Chicken, except for
beach volleyball.
Yeah, they kind of gave us a generational line with this Intervallo. Aside from that though, I do like the location of it. The divide between the back streets and nests being so apparent, it really fits into the overall message of capitalism that fucking hates you, which has been a central point in this world. Seeing how they can keep one area pristine, yet just use what they determine as the back streets a garbage dump, as they provide a crystal clear view into the luxury nest dwellers have, which will vaporize you if you touch it, just to provide entertainment to the rich nest dwellers. That's really good writing. Aside from that though, we do get to see characters from Library of Verena, but they don't talk too much about what happened in the library, so this isn't the time in the story we actually dive into that. But the best part of this Intervallo is Ishmael's crash out. Her growing to resent the group as they aren't taking this seriously, her projecting onto Heathcliff as she calls him a pathetic, lovey-dovey tenderfoot that isn't prepared for how the lake will transform him, like it did to her after it took out Queequeg, and this eventually boiling over till Ishmael almost kills Heathcliff, making Yi-Song try to stop them, something he would only do after going through his Canto, and making Dante question their abilities as a manager, setting up for later in Canto 5 where they actually become the fucking GOAT. The crash out segment of Ishmael is easily the best part of this Intervallo, right behind
beach volleyball.
But aside from that, the Intervallo doesn't do too much else. It's a good sneak peek and setup for Canto 5, but it's become the standard for Intervallos to do that while also giving us more in their stories, which is part of the reason newer Cantos are like double or triple the length of this one. So I'm going to put this into good but can use improvement, right above Hell's Chicken, as the tiers are listed best on the left, moving down to worse on the right in their row. I don't think it's terrible, but the good moments it has are few compared to a lot of other Intervallos. So I'll be harsher with the rating as I don't want this tier list to have every Intervallo in like top tier or above that, which thankfully won't be a problem for this next one. Miracle in District 20. What does he even do? Like genuinely. Going to the outskirts? Interesting as a concept. But all of the characters we see from there? Don't care. The build up to Canto 6? Not really interesting. The enemies we go against? They're fucking gnomes. This event was pretty much just made cause, oh, it's Christmas. But nothing really happens in it. Or at least nothing terribly important that couldn't have been covered in Dante's notes or something. So this one's getting thrown in please delete yourself from the game. It's a pretty safe choice to go into that category. I really just don't care about it, and I hardly doubt I'm alone. Next up though, yield my flesh to claim their bones. This one, classic, easy. We get to see Kim Aura Farm, sets up for the future Intervallo monastic experience. Hell, even Ongdu and Kim that are introduced in this Intervallo also set up for Canto 9. Hearing more about the Kurokuma clan and the Blade lineage is cool. Not to mention how integral the events Library of Rona are for this event, so it feels like that part of the world is being explored a ton more compared to how it was in the C event. There's also Dante's, I don't even know what to call it. The moment Dante turned into Ein, which is 1000% foreshadowing to the final act of the game. I feel like it's accurate to say that Yield My Flesh is an event that doesn't have a particular moment behind it that's huge, but it spends the event building up so much for the future. Hell, this is the first time we meet Ezra too. Also, we got a heads up at how vast Limbus Company is with the LCA and Monoliths. Not to mention, this is the event where we had Merso transform into a ballistic missile to knock out Ongdu. So all in all, I don't believe this event does one thing in particular amazing, but instead that all of it perfectly builds up to later parts in the story. So I'm putting it in the top tier. Next up is Time Killing Time. This one gave us T-Corp in its entirety, made Rogia a character, and showed us Hubert. For better or for worse. But I'm not exaggerating when I see T-Corp is one of the best districts in the city. I'm not even framing this as like it's one of my personal favorites, which it is, but I just genuinely believe this is top 3 districts in the world. How time is used as a currency, and if people don't have enough of it, they're exploited to only have 10-hour-long days where they spend most of that working, whilst the rich can abuse the what they have to where they effectively have 50 hours in a day that they can use to amass even more wealth. It's a system where the poor are fully reduced to just workers that have no hope of fighting back as they can't even move quickly, whilst the rich get to partake in any luxury they want, including actually having colors for their clothes, something that's restricted in T-Corp unless you have enough money to buy it. As an area, they did so well with T-Corp, especially with the system of time being the reason the Distortion's brother died, causing them to go on a crusade against T-Corp. And then there's also Hubert, that desperately wants it to change, to the point where he shows interest in what power Distortions can grant for him to achieve that change, and buys a ton of monoliths at the end of the story. Yeah, that's definitely going to come back to probably bite us in the ass in the future. But this event was damn good. Great area, good foreshadowing, character development, and will definitely be important in the future. If you told me to introduce the city in Project Moon with just one district, I'm choosing T-Corps. This one is going in almost Canto level. It does so much amazing, but I can't put it in Canto level when I compare it to later Intervallos we've gotten. Next up is Murder on the Warp Express. For this one, we got a peek into Faust without a connection to, well, Faust. So it helped set up the seeds of the later revelation there, but more importantly, it gave us Grumpy Faust, which was funny as fuck. Then we got to look into how W Corp is faltering as a wing because the energy problems are encountering after L Corp's fall, but all that is really secondary to the lore about Blood Fiends. Like, anything the event does pales in comparison to the lore draft that Don Quixote was a Blood Fiend, to the point where anything before the last 2 cutscenes feel like filler, and that's not an insult, by the way, it's immense praise. As I feel like since it's common knowledge after a Canto that Don Quixote is a blood fiend, that being the big thing of this event can come off as lacking when looking back on it. But seeing the cutscene where she mocks Cassetti and reveals that she's a blood fiend after hearing so much theorizing that she was, as this was foreshadowed back in Canto 2,
그대들 다소 무례하군.
made this event leave the biggest impact when I finished it for the first time.
말도 안 돼. 당신은 제2 권속 지금까지 어떤 일렁임도 뿜어내지 않고서
배륜이군. 금기고.
선조시여 일마리 잡이래. 둘째 권속이시여 일마리 잡이래. 둘째 권속이시여 일마리 잡이래.
버릇없는 놈. 네 놈은 감히 나와 섞을 수 있는 아니 피를 거스르는 폐륜의 죄악을 저지른 채 내 눈앞에 서 있는 것부터 용납되지 않고 굳어지고 다시 녹아내려라.
I am putting this at the top of top tier. I don't care. This scene stuck with me for a good while after this Intervallo. So, LCB regular checkup gave us Hohenheim. This is both a blessing and a curse. Blessing, as he is an extremely well-written character, but curse, as because of the voice I ended up giving him, I have been randomly shouting, "Indeed!" in my personal life for the past year and a half ever since this event. Now, bar for bar, I'm willing to say this is probably the funniest event we got in the game. Like Yi-sang thinking he was hot shit as he thought he was the strongest sinner for a moment.
많은 것을 드러내지 않으려 하였고 겉에 보이는 것이 다는 아니라는 것을 알리고자 했어. 또한 내게는 마음속 풍요가 있으니 아마 오늘의 시험은 그 두 개를 다 아울러 보여준 것 같구려. 그 외의 설명은 이상이요.
저... 이상씨...
언젠가 그대들도 날개를 달기를 바라오.
이상씨... 이거... 순서 거꾸로인 것 같아요.
And it served as a great team building event while also building towards the future story as well. I mean, obviously enough how Canto 9 takes place in the same exact area with most of the same characters as 1. Another being how Roach Emperor Gregor was foreshadowed here. But something I never really talked about is the cutscene when Don Quixote takes off Rocinante. Hearing all the lore about how she ascended to take on the thirst for blood of the entire family and how binding that blood is for blood fiends is interesting. But what I actually want to focus on is the ever-increasing distrust Don Quixote has towards the company, as when she heard all of those voices, the voice of the first kindred also spoke to her, making her start to think that he's still alive, as we know Limbus Company is doing something with him. But as of now, we don't have a revelation to what's happening there, but we do got a lot of knowledge about Hohenheim, which honestly, he's probably top 3 Limbus NPCs for me. Seeing how he always tries to distance himself away from people verbally, yeah, you can easily tell how much he cares about them is great, especially as he's constantly called out on this by his assistants, and how this feeling bubbled over into the worst case of survivor's guilt to where he distorted himself because of it. Hohenheim carried this event. I think he's a really damn good character. All in all, I think I'll rate this one... it's a little hard. I'm juggling it either above Murder on the Warp Express or below it. I think I'll go below it, as the reveal of Don being a blood fiend stuck with me for a while after finishing the Intervallo, and at least for Hohenheim, I feel like his best moments come up later in the story. This definitely does feel like an introduction, so I'll put it there, but they're pretty much neck and neck. Now time for Nocturnal Sweeping, the start of the eternity of captivity where we never left H-Corp for an entire year. In terms of setup for a Canto, this is easily the best one at it. We get a look into H-Corp, the family hierarchs, and how much scheming and plotting goes on behind the scenes. Honestly, for something called Nocturnal Sweeping, the sweepers are kinda just there. Like, they just pop up in the end for the boss fight, but aside from that, they don't really matter too much to this Intervallo. They're just set up to guide the sinners into the residence where they can get jumped. Though, it is nice to hear more about them, as the sweepers as a concept are interesting, so I'm glad they were brought back, and more importantly, I'm glad someone else was brought back.
마침내 너희를 찾아다니느라 내 머리카락이 조금 더 버석해졌지.
Genuinely, Ricardo brings up any story he's in by a few points, I don't care. Especially when we get to fight alongside him against the sweepers. Well, get to fight alongside him for like 20 seconds before he's blasted off like Team Rocket due to the restructuring. However, Ricardo isn't the only one to walk in out of nowhere this Intervallo.
자리는 본자가.
어리석구나. 그 말만은 입에 담지 말았어야지.
Man, I really forgot just how much he big dick walked in there like that, goddamn. Though, as an Intervallo, it really does feel like almost pure setup for the Canto. Not a bad thing at all, but it's not like some which feel as though they're stories in their own right. So I think I'll put it in top tier below LCB checkup event. Spring Cultivation is actually goated. Genuinely one of the best events they've made. It's a perfect finale to Canto 8, and on its own, it stands really well. Like getting to see the sinners be laid back during the Umumusume segment of the event, the character development where you see Tsunul actually become the hierarch of H-Corp, in addition to seeing the politics behind the scenes of it, how Sinclair grew during this event and called back to it with World War II Sinclair, the Night Drifter, Nothing really else to note, just his existence. I quite like it. To me, Spring Cultivation fits within the category of Canto level for two reasons. One is that Canto A feels like it's missing a chunk of itself without this Intervallo, and two is that the characters it focuses on actually have really meaningful development. Some Intervallos are focused on building the world, like Time Killing Time. Some are focused on building side characters, like the LCB checkup event. This one focuses on finishing a Canto and building up a main character and someone who, while not a part of the main cast, will undoubtedly be important for not just Limbus Company, but many future works of Project Moon. Like, we really built up the head of a wing in this Intervallo. It was great. Good character moments, good development, and a story that is integral to the plot. I'm putting Spring Cultivation into Canto level easily. So, this next one, the Arknights collab. You see, there's two wolves inside me, both of which are gay, but one is with my Arknight's glaze saying I should praise this to no end, and the other, my objective side of reasoning, saying I should rate it as it stands on its own, how it fits within the game. And I think, despite my wants, I will listen to the second wolf and view this objectively. I, as a person, really like this event, as I love how it connects to Arknights, and Arknights is one of my favorite games of all time. But I think saying something like, bro, to elevate this Canto, you should play this other game and read 2 Bibles' worth of text to really enjoy it is, you know, maybe a bit much. Now, that's not to say that I think it's a failing of this Intervallo, as you can enjoy it without playing Arknights, as is pretty evident by the positive reception to the Intervallo. But it's more that I feel like I need to cut back on my personal enjoyments and be more objective because I have all the added context for this Intervallo. And an Intervallo being at the top of the tier list because it was a perfect representation as one of my favorite games would kinda just make the tier list feel like Mickey Mouse. Even though, yeah, this is a list of my personal opinions. But on its own merits, I think it's really good. Mayers is a well-written character. Her distortion scene in particular is actually one of my favorites. It shows how Carmen is able to really twist someone's thoughts and make them distort. In this case, taking Mayer's desire for everyone to be saved and manipulating to make her think that trampling over everyone else's wants is the correct path. What she needs to do to truly save everyone. It brings in the moral question of, can survival at all costs be something worth stripping humanity of individuality? As Mayers points out, how Seaborn aren't inherently evil, they just prioritize survival at all costs. Whilst if you're dealing with a human, there's a non-zero chance they'll leave you for dead if they have something to gain out of it. And there is some truth to her words. The prejudice that surrounds Terra would be resolved if everyone was a Seaborn. No more genocides against the Sarkaz or oppression of the infected would happen. And conversely for the city, a lot of people have surrendered to it, unable to live a proper life. But becoming a Seaborn could fix that. I mean, hell, ask the people in T-Corp who live 4-hour days if they would like to break free from that and join a hive mind. I think a lot of people would probably say yes to that. However, the reply by the doctor shows that this isn't really black and white, where they said survival is the right of all civilization, which means that it should never be up to others to define the worth of life, to argue for it. It's a really interesting moral dilemma, and I think the Intervallo did a good job at bringing that to the forefront, which then perfectly leads back to Arknights' story, and, you know, I'm gonna just stop myself here before I go off to rant about Arknights' story again. If you want to see a deeper dive on this Intervallo, you can find it here, link in the description. But for the rating, the fan part of me would put it in Canto level tier, however the more objective part of me puts it at almost Canto level below Time Killing Time, as it's a self-contained story that I find really interesting, which is able to wrap itself up nicely. It does exactly what it says out to do, and the story I wanted to tell is, even if it were to have no connection to Arknights, one that I really like. Alright, second to last one, Twining Threads, also known as Gregor's Canto, Part 2. As I feel like that's the most interesting part of this Intervallo. Honestly, even though the ring are the big bads we gotta face this Intervallo, it really does feel like they more or less take a backseat to the main important things of the story. That being Gregor's therapy session, Ryoshi's connection with Arai Shiki, and Kira. Kinda just straight up Kira. I'm not gonna lie, she's the highlight of this Intervallo. I really fuck with her character, even though there were a couple of lines she said that have a cadence way too close to how I talk, thus meaning that all of this time I've come across as a dumb zoomer in my videos, which, you know, maybe not the most preferable, but it is what it is. The whole little arc in this Intervallo of becoming more trustworthy of us was really nice to see. Gregor's monologue, however, is actually one of my favorite scenes in Limbus Company, where he goes through his PTSD from the smoke war, saying it's never ended, yet he grew confident in being weak. When the chains attached to him and he struggled with killing a random backstreets thug, he was happy. When Hohenheim said he was an exception, it gave him hope. He wanted to be a weakling, someone who could do no harm. To him, that sounds like the perfect life. But all of those dreams came crumbling down when it was revealed that he wasn't an exception to the possibility of growing weak, but an exception because he had the capacity of being G-Corp's deadliest invention. I feel like it's really easy to hear about what G-Corp did to Gregor and go, man, that's messed up. But the speech, at least to me, really helped convey the idea of helplessness. That, if you were to be put in Gregor's shoes, your body was taken and transformed into a weapon for killing. That was what your entire purpose was meant to be. And no matter how far ago that was in the past, this will always be your purpose. It's just a matter of when you will snap and murder millions rather than if you will snap. You can never escape what you were made to become. His speech really sent that home to me, and it's why I think it's one of the best scenes in Limbus Company. I really can't wait till he gets fully voiced. And the scene after that too, with Gregor talking to Ted, actually gave a sense of realism that I feel like PM hasn't done terribly often, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that we usually get invested in the more fantastical elements of the world because, well, that's interesting. But every now and then, getting a change of pace is really refreshing. For the rest of the Intervallo, it mainly focuses on tying up loose ends with Canto 9, like seeing more of Rien, namely how the prescripts decided to give this man the same exact home layout as Roland. Then we get to see more of how Araya tried to communicate with Ryoshu through the scabbard, culminating in showing the possibility of Araya's memory returning to Ryoshu. I think this is a really good Intervallo. The only thing that is a blemish on it is the ring not being too interesting in it. So because of this, I was originally planning on rating it at almost Canto tier, but looking back at it, the ring was at least set up for Ryoshu to explain that she's planning to make her own art movement, so I can forgive the presents not being the best, and I think I'll move this to Canto tier right below Spring Cultivation, as Canto 9 feels like it's missing so much without it. Final Intervallo for the tier list, Monastic Experience. Y'all already know directly where this is going. Hell, it's part of the reason why I decided to make this video. Monastic Experience was Project Moon going like, man, the community really loves Kim, don't they? Man, we really love Kim, don't we? Fuck it, make him a Canto. And then Monastic Experience was born. This is literally just a mini Canto for Kim. Like, yeah, sure, it builds up from Urso's Canto, and there's definitely going to be some important things that are revealed this Intervallo that come back for that, but this was literally Kim's show. From the very first cutscene with him in it, you can tell this is going to be built around him. I told you I only took on the role because there wasn't anyone else around to take the job. He's so fucking cool. He's so fucking cool. Switch. Where's the switch? Ah, gotcha. Why does he still have aura though, brother? The fucking hat. Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? Goodness. Known as Bamboo hated Kim. Yeah. Huh? Nah. No. Further why? Don't gift a tier 1 sub to aura loss. This Intervallo can pretty much be summed up as, oh, you like him for the aura? Yeah, what if we put him in immense aura depth, make you love him as a character, then genuinely give him some of the most aura you've ever seen in this game. Actual 10 out of 10. The conversations between Kim and, his friend, who has a name I cannot pronounce, were both a good intro to S-Corp and just solid character development of someone who was naive in their life, how it all came crashing down, and how Ongdu was able to help piece it back together in her speech to him, saying that Kim doesn't need to take on responsibilities for everything that has happened, as the Blade lineage never wanted to ask him of that. And so he finally stands up to Carmen, who in the past turned him into a flurry of blades, slaughtering friend and foe alike. Yet now, acknowledging his faults and coming to terms with himself, his life, his unachieved goals, he simply states his name, Bamboo-hatted Kim, and dons his ego. This needs to be voiced immediately. This Intervallo took a side character and fully developed them within the event, pretty much treated them as the main character, whilst the main cast was just the B plot, and the plot which resulted in Merso getting arrested. Well, that's not a problem till August at the very least. But Monastic Experience is easily the best Intervallo in the game. It's the reason I made this video. It deserves all its flowers. Honestly, a part of me wanted to make a video specifically about it, but with it not being voiced, I found it'd be hard to do that, as I like playing the scenes when they're voice acted instead of adding my own. But if this is the level of Intervallo we can expect going forward, I will change my perspective to happy when a new Intervallo is announced, as it means we'll have a good story to read, to instead being as excited as when a Canto is announced, thinking this next story will be generational. They did a very good job with this Intervallo. And that is it for the list. Honestly, I didn't want most Intervallos in the high tiers, but at the same time, I mean, I would explain most of the Intervallos as top tier. Though, looking at this list, it is the fact that most are in the middle, with 3 below that and 5 above it. So honestly, I think it's a fair division of the Intervallos in the game. It just so happens that most of the tiers sound like glazing, because I mean, y'all see this channel, genuinely what did you expect? But in terms of how I'll update this tier list, I don't know. I can see myself giving another version of it when the plot of Limbus Company is closer to being finished, though not like anyone knows when that will be, as the game definitely isn't going to end with Canto 12. Though, that is it for the tier list. If you disagree, I just want you to personally know that unless you write a 10,000 word essay in the comments as to why, I will send the head directly to your location.